Good day, lads and lassies. We're doing a different video today. We're doing something a little bit more serious, something a little bit more focused, and I wanted to make sure that I got all of the information out properly. And I want to do this just right. One of the complaints that I've had over the last 2 years was it feels like Fatshark is mismanaging the content release of Darktide with maps, large updates, weapons, and cosmetics and those. The one thing that Fatshark has kept up with is cosmetics. It's the one thing that they make money on. However, it is the release of content that I've felt has always been underwhelming, and I've always called them on it. I've felt that Fatshark can be handled both positively and critically at the same time. And it's not just Fatshark, it is every single company that makes video games. If you like the product, be critical of it, because that means you want the product to be better. And I always want Fatshark to do better with Darktide because I love the 40k franchise. And I love what Darktide does, is it fulfills the fantasy of being a ground pounder. Somebody who is absolutely, completely, 100% expendable and forgettable. But we are here to do something great, and we are here to make the lives of the citizens Imperium better. And if we can do that here in Atoma, well, it allows our characters to have just a bit of hope. So I want to go through all of the updates that Fatshark has done where they've added content to the game or made important changes to the game as well. The other thing I'm going to say is, I have always said Fatshark needs to release a map every quarter along with a handful of weapons, and ironically, funny enough, they actually have managed to do that, but not in the correct way. So let's go through everything, and you guys can see what I mean. We're going to start from the very beginning. November 30th, 2022. Darktide releases with an all-time peak of 108,000 players and starts off with a rocky go, connection issues, disconnects, things we're still suffering with to today. On December 14th, the first major community update launches with Zealots getting that lovely baseball bat with legs and a power maul for the Ogrins, along with the release of the Calms Plex map, adding a new condition, the hunting grounds as well. While still in a state of stability uncertainty, this was a good step in the right direction for Darktide. On January 24th, 2023, Fatshark offers an official open letter apology to the lack of stability of the game, and has since been actually working on what Martin Waloed said: a complete crafting system, a more rewarding progression loop, and game stability. The latter of that being still an uphill battle against Grandfather Nurgle's fat rolls, as well as a suspension of the cosmetic shop. On January 25th, we met Catfish, a new community manager who has been a fan love since her arrival due to her fantastic job and not belittling the player base. As far as I know, to this day, she is still viewed as a queen by the community. If that has changed, please leave a comment down below. But as far as I remember, she still aces in everybody's eyes. She leaves it to everyone else to fuck up. February 22nd, we received the Blessings of the Omnissiah update, allowing for loadout control, Brunt's Armory exchange, a better Melk, and our current interim crafting system. To make the system better, it updated the amount of materials earned on missions, and was one of the biggest updates to the game, and one of the better ones without bringing a new map into the game. It was well received. On March 23rd, Tools of War content drop, blessing details, weapon marks, new conditions, shop location changes, and general class and enemy changes. One of the best releases for the game to date, as it did give us a whole new slew of armaments to wield against the foes of the Imperium. It also added debuff icons to the lower left-hand corner, as well as the buff icons. Finally, it was a nice change to see. On May 2nd, there was quite a long drought of information and good content, but we received the Garbs and Penances. This was an update that I loved and I praised Fatshark for. giving penances actual rewards as free, high-quality, earnable cosmetics, and gave the player something to grind for within the game. This was a patch, however, at the time that was poorly received, but should still have gotten a lot more credit than it did. It gave the player base something to hunt after. I just wish Fatshark would have, over the course of 2023, put in a bit more effort and released more free, high-quality, earnable cosmetics or recolors within the commissary shop, which they have not updated since they made the changes. May 29th brought us Ascension Riser and Archivum Sycorax, two fantastic maps and some of the best aesthetics in 40k. It brought the Chaos Spawn, an old friend that loves to give tentacle tickles and not the kind that certain subsection of people enjoy watching. It also brought the first community event that they should have kept up on. It was fan-freaking-tastic, and it was one I loved doing and found that the player base really did engage with. It brought the commissary to us as well and gave us all our Ordo-only purchase gear, some new and the rest old. As I said, we're still waiting on new commissary gear. It's not that hard, Fatshark. Come on, you can do it. August 8th brought us the Maelstrom, a challenging mode with high rewards and a way to truly test your skill both in Auric Damnations and standard play, as well as quick play bonus rewards, new conditions, crafting changes for refining and modification, and a joint currency banking. This was something that the players were fighting for the entire release up until this point because it just made the grind that much easier. You could have your high level characters doing damnations and aurics and getting yourselves some extra dosh as well as materials. It was one of the best changes that they did. I'm glad they bent the knee. I should just say that I'm glad they took the L on the chin with that one and accepted that the players were right. But it is what it is. October 3rd brought us the class overhaul, bringing us new ways to play the characters we've been playing with over the course of the last year, and made a whole new group of paint huffers that cry over build theory. I cannot tell you how exhausting it is to hear people complain about build theory, especially when you're doing a sarcastic video. Let me tell you something. Any build that you take the time to work on and think about is viable. And thank God they're doing itemization to where you can actually achieve those builds without having to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours grinding the goddamn game. However, it would be that this patch showed a lack of love for the veterans, as they would receive absolutely no keystones, and at first be considered a complete tree. November 14th would release the Trader's Curse and most significant story update and maps expansion for Darktide, and a complete veteran tree that would still need fixing several weeks later. This was nice, they admitted and again took an L on the chin and said, you're right, the veteran also needs keystones, we fucked up. And it's nice to see when Fatshark can take those L's. It gives me the opportunity to look back and say, you know what, they tried. And they did it, and they made things better. December 5th would bring part 2 of the Trader's Curse. With it came new weapon marks, a speed-loaded revolver being the biggest hit, and stims. The veteran tree would receive another patch and start to look a bit better. And where the veteran tree is right now, I can tell you, is fan-freaking-tastic. I love playing my veteran. I'm sure many of you are used to hearing my veteran voice at this point, and, well, that's why. December 13th saw the release of the Twins and some of the best boss mechanics that have been produced by Fatshark. This was probably one of my most loved moments within this game, was going up against the Karnak Twins on all the difficulties and getting into the thick of it and really testing my skill and the skill of my team to achieve the greatest of victories. However, it does bring in some darker moments, especially with recent updates, as over the course of the year, our rejects have gotten remarkably good at double tapping all their assassination targets and making sure that they are actually dead. The fact that we didn't do that with the Karnak Twins really goes to show a lack of consistency within the storytelling, but the only way that Fatshark is able to bring Rinda back is by making our rejects dumb again. It kind of takes away from the consistency of all of our rejects, making sure that our target is dead as doornails. It wouldn't be until February 21st of 2024 that we would see the first patch of the year, changing how the power sword functions, some HUD changes, as well as some other general fixes. Then it would be April 16th that brought the Path of Redemption, changes to the penance system, ability to fully recreate your character. Apparently all the talk of it being impossible was, let me look at the paperwork here, wrong, as well as a new condition of pox gas and a pox grenadier. Further adding the martyr's skull to missions, heretical idols to shoot, and some mission types receiving objective changes from raid to strike, etc. Also, the best mission change to the game possible, Hab Draco being a much better Karking map than it used to be. I can honestly tell you, I now love this fucking map. It is fantastic. Aesthetically, it looks great, and poisoning a plague-ridden Nurgle Daemon tree is silly, but it's 40k enough that it works and believable, and I love it, and I cannot get enough of that map now, weirdly enough. And I hate doing those investigation missions, but it just hits so goddamn good. June 20th would bring the first update of Itemization, just a quick little tidbit. And then June 25th would see the launch of Secrets of the Machine God, bringing one new map, a forgettable character that should have been a member of the Mechanicus instead. Hell, I'd have even taken a new enemy faction added to the game through the Dark Mechanicum. That'd have been better than doing other dregs and scabs. It would have actually made this Secrets of the Machine God something a lot more interesting than it ended up being. The return of the community events, which was nice, Test Your Steel, or Test Your Metal, I forget what it was called, and my new loadout of weapons going full copper mode, crosshair updates, as well as new indicators for damage, and the ability to preview voice changes on helmets. While this update was a little underwhelming, it did bring us a new map, which was a pleasant change, and it was fun for the first few times I ran it. After that, it became something I barely even heard any of the dialogue that was going on, whereas other maps, I still listen to the dialogue that plays. I think some of my favorites is with the new carnival missions where you go down and you set the breaching charge on the wall. That one is probably my favorite with the internal dialogue of everybody. July 19th would bring the only real update that mattered during Fatshark's vacation, an idea about the itemization and a Q&A. This was probably some of the most important things that we needed as a community, would be to hear exactly where itemization is and how far along they are with it. And unfortunately, since then, they have been quiet. It's been a month. Do need to see something a bit more. August 16th brings us to current day, the awakening and the return of Rinda Karnak. No update on itemization for over a month, as I said, and the new event Herald of Admonition, taking over a month to bring another event to the game. Of course, this is understandable, they were on vacation, but While this update is somewhat mid, it does still bring content to the game in a new way and gives us a plethora of resources to go and achieve. Thankfully, this was a quick one to complete. I, however, have only gone to 12 missions. I don't really need the diamantine, I only needed the plasteel, and I've actually already almost burned through all of it, building a hellboard. Looking at the entire lifespan of Darktide, it is safe to say that there have been a lot of ups and downs within the game, with much of the complaints of content drought coming from a position of content not actually coming at what feels like regular intervals. Ironically, as I said, we actually have gotten a total of 7 maps over the almost 2 years of play. If we get another map before the end of the year, that will be 1 map every quarter, just not released in a quarterly fashion. Now, I could say that I am giving Fatshark a lot more generosity in this, as I'm counting the boss map against the Karnak twins as its own separate map that could be reutilized to do more intense boss fight maps, whereas we could be fighting 2 Beasts of Nurgle, we could be fighting 2 Chaos Spawns, we could fight a souped up Chaos Spawn, or maybe 2 Demon Hosts. These things that could be added to the game, so that way this map that is strictly to the Karnak twins, that I don't know how many people are running these days, could be reutilized to make something great out of that map and still use its awesome, grungy, spiky, blood everywhere, dark, cultist, chaosy feel. It was a good map. It felt good, and I enjoyed it. This does, however, make the drought from map to map, content to content worse because they do not release it quarterly. Remember, Fatshark said that they wanted to make a live service game, and while it is live and lacking consistent service, it is unfortunately still doing exactly what they wanted to do, be a live service game that pushes content out at whatever pace they see fit, regardless of how unappealing that pace is, and still charging you an overpriced cost for cosmetics. Weapons, however, have not come out as frequently as maps have, but we still have gotten quite a large amount of weapons, even if we do count marks. I do still stand by releasing a new weapon or weapons every map release, but it doesn't need to be a whole lot. If they had better communication and said with every map release we will be releasing new weapons, one of which will be a class specific weapon for class 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then the next class gets a weapon until the year's end, and each class gets one new specific weapon over the course of the year, or weapons depending on how able Fatshark is to create new class-specific weapons. This does, however, kind of cause some balancing issues with the Ogrins, as their drops might need to have multiple class-specific weapons throughout the year, as there are 3 standard classes, and then there is one big boy. And we do love our Ogrins, don't get me wrong, just because I'm not doing the voice doesn't mean I don't appreciate my Ogrin players. This would allow for a better stream of live content and would endear the player base a bit more to spend more money in the cash shop, because they feel like they're actually getting something, not only for their time, but for their money. And even I am one who's willing to give money back if I'm getting more content sent my way. The value proposition, unfortunately, is not there right now, and so Darktide will continue to suffer in the monetization department. I do know there are a lot of you that will buy whatever skin gets launched. I don't think that's particularly healthy, not only for your wallet, but also for your mind. But I am not a shrink, and nor am I your father, so I cannot tell you how to spend your money. All I can say is, it just doesn't seem like a good idea. I am on the positive side of hope, though, with what little good steps Fatshark is making forward, that we see ourselves getting a better drip of content that we can rely on releasing until the game can be set aside for the next project. Again, a map every quarter and a handful of weapons with each map, and the players knowing it will come out every 3 months is possible. They have, by the numbers, done it. They just unfortunately decided to do batch releases instead of saying, here's a new map this quarter, here's a new map this quarter. And one thing they could do as well is still have these massive releases like Trader's Curse or the Machine God, and actually build out full new zones with multiple maps to play and engage with the story as well, and even new weapons. I'm not saying that when they come out with these big releases they stop their content drip, but doing so would allow for more players to want to come back to the game, because these big releases come out. They could be your whole big story expansions, and I would even be willing to throw a little extra money into your cash shop to buy maybe the big update specific armors and weapon skins. I'd find that perfectly reasonable. Now, someone is going to say that you would never see half the maps if this was the case, because Fatshark would be putting out too many for you to ever get to play them all. So then Fatshark only needs to implement what they have in Vermintide 2's mission board. Sector out X amount of maps that would form a cohesive story and have those be story sections. And then you would allow players to choose which maps they want to do, or you could quick play with the rewards being upped possibly another 20% of what they currently sit at. It will allow players to play what they want to play, and when they feel like doing up some randoms to get extra resources, they'll be able to. Thus, player agency is achieved, and people can have a bit more fun. And unfortunately, I feel like I have to say this every time I do a more serious video, no, solo play will never happen. Again, I'm sorry. They should have never said that it was possible, but you know they did it just to get you solo boys' monies, right? Now, Itemization hopefully will be coming with a whole batch of positive changes. Some things I would like to see Fatshark include within the Itemization update, is maps to further expand the Machine God storyline that has been dropped for Herald of Admonition. Giving us access to the Mechanicus temples would be pretty cool, new enemies being the Dark Mechanicum. I know everyone else wants Gene Stealers, but I do think fighting against the Dark Mechanicum would actually be a pretty epic thing and would fall in line with enemies that we can kill ourselves. Tech Priests are not invulnerable, and they do have some really unique heavy units, as well as fighting against Skitarii Rangers. That does frighten me a little bit, thinking that we, normal, everyday, average rejects could take out some super hyped up Skitarii or Rust Stalkers, and the idea of it worries me, but I do find it exhilarating. Their weapons would definitely hurt and would probably be a bit slower to fire, but those radium rifles, ooh, those would definitely hurt. And they would fit well with the aesthetic that Darktide currently has. This would also allow them to give us some Mechanicus gear and a Fallen Tech Priest as the 5th class. I have a video on that. The link will be in the description down below as to why I think a Fallen Tech Priest of Hadron's one that she would have tried to servitor. Unfortunately, Grendel got in the way and assigned them to the squad. After all, if they're going to die, they might as well die doing what Grendel needs, and after that, Hadron can get your body. Will these things come with the Itemization update? Probably not. Probably not at all. And it is sad because they absolutely should do something big. They should swing for the fences with this. It would provide the player base with a whole slew of new weapons to grind on and revitalize the player base with new content to dig their fingers into. Not just a full weapon customization itemization update. While that will be great, I feel like adding more content to this update would be the right course of action for player stability and player interest. Fatshark just has to do one thing, however, to make itemization really shine, and not release it at the same time as Space Marine 2. It doesn't matter if you say you cannot compare the two games, because you absolutely can. They are both horde shooters. One is just going to fulfill the fantasy of being a Space Marine with more punchy cinematic combat and third-person combat as well, and fighting the Nids and a bunch of walking sandbags. Adding to that, Saber Interactive has also come out and said that all in-game cosmetics are earnable through playing the game. Everything in the game is earnable simply through playing it, and that is something that we can absolutely all agree on that Fatshark has not done with Darktide. It first started with Helldivers 2, where you could earn the premium cosmetics, and unfortunately, Helldivers 2 is in a sticky situation where they have a lot of egg on their face and need to take an L on the chin. However, they are resisting it. But with Space Marine 2, they are doing the right thing and giving the players access to everything and not behind a paywall. I'm excited for it, and it's going to be fun. That fulfills a very specific kind of fantasy, and it also gives you that PvP Chaos Marine versus Loyalist Marine fantasy as well. It's going to slap, and it's going to slap hard, and it will eat into the player base of Darktide. You cannot argue that fact. Darktide, however, does one of the best jobs, if not the only best job, at fulfilling the fantasy of being a ground pounder and doing your damnedest with your indomitable human spirit to save humanity, save Atoma Prime, and ensure the survival of your squad, no matter who you are. Darktide fulfills a fantasy that I've always wanted with a 40k game, and it makes me want to have more RPG creators do a guardsman story where you have a CRPG style game, much like Rogue Trader, but you play as a guardsman. You can recruit Ogrins, you can recruit regimental psychers, you can recruit religious zealots. And Owlcat did a fantastic job with Rogue Trader, but I would love to see that be done in the way of just being a standard issue guardsman. I like that. It makes me smile. In the end, If Darktide wants to succeed against the wave that is going to be Space Marine 2, it needs to plan the release for after Space Marine 2's release. And hopefully, it's after its honeymoon period. Best bet will be at the end of September, when players have slotted this into their daily or weekly rotation of games that they play, to where when they're done playing Space Marine 2, they look at Darktide and go, man, that itemization is there. I really want to get into that, and I want to grind some more of that out. And that way, you get people to play both games. You draw in new players who've never touched a 40k game or have never touched a 40k book. You're able to draw them into the franchise. You're able to get them to want to engage with it. And they see this cool itemization update that is a great fucking expansion that allows them to fully customize their weapon and really find a play style that is not only unique to them, but fits them in a way that Darktide is able to facilitate. And if you can do that, Fatshark, you can bet your oversized fishy bottom I will give you praise that you deserve. You just gotta swing for the goddamn fences with this one. Please. All of this to say that Fatshark has had a semi-successful live service game that is held back by the focus of other things that are not Darktide, and I've caused a few people to get upset at this, but I do think Vermintide 2, after this versus mode is released, and now that it is in beta, I would like to see more of your team get reallocated to Darktide. The player base for Darktide is currently double that of Vermintide's, and I think that's a good sign that you can let Vermintide 2 be, and you really need to start pushing content for Darktide, Fatshark. There can't be any more defense of this company saying that that's just how Fatshark rolls. We need to hold them to a higher accountability and encourage them to communicate more, which also means taking less hostile action against Fatshark every time they do something you don't like, and realize that there are some hills that Fatshark is willing to die on, and you should not be the one to die on it with them. Move past it and hold their asses to the fire to keep creating good things for this game, better things for this game, and stop asking for things that they've said they will not make. If Darktide is able to succeed with all of its goals, and Fatshark is able to refocus to achieve everything that they want to achieve with this game and really make it sing, because the core gameplay loop does just that, but it's all the side things within the game that hamper it and hinder its progress moving forward. As one of only 3 games to exist that fulfill the fantasy of being in 40k, it does feel like Fatshark has a responsibility and a duty to make this the best possible game for 40k players, for people who want to come in and enjoy the series, who want to learn more about 40k, and want to really become a part of this universe with us. Their core gameplay loop, as I said, is always fantastic. Now they just need to build upon more of what makes their games truly unique and immersive. I wish you, Fatshark, the very best, and I hope you nail it on the head with itemization and whatever else comes along with it. I will, as always, be here to deliver fair and honest feedback when it gets here. So take care of yourselves and keep working hard. Cheers, lads. Thank you to the patrons for supporting the channel on Patreon. There's a link down in the description if you want to join the patrons there. You can also support on YouTube here by finding the YouTube member link, wherever that may be. And you can also do the algorithm thing, subscribe, like, comment, tell me your thoughts on what you'd like to see moving forward with the game. And do keep it civil down in the comments. We're just people. We're all trying to get along and have a good time. I wish you all the very best. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope that you all take excellent care of yourselves. Peace.